Today I'm going to be showing you how to set up a carp rod. When you're first getting into carp fishing, it can be a bit confusing. So in this video, I'm going to focus on the simplest way to get fishing easily. So first of all, I've got my carp rod. I'm going to take the tip safes off of it. Obviously, when your rod first arrives, it'll probably be in a rod bag. But when you put it together, you want to line up the eyes. So you look down the eyes to make sure that the eyes on the rod are all lined up. This will help with casting. If they're sort of crooked off to the side, when you cast, the line won't go through the eyes so nicely. So getting it lined up straight is quite important. To attach your reel, you just unscrew this handle, take my reel and just slot that into place. Once I've tightened down the other side of the handle, it should just lock into place like that, nice and solid. Now this particular rod and reel is what I use for quite a lot of my carp fishing, and it's especially useful for smaller waters, the sort of place that you'll probably be fishing as a beginner carp angler. It's 10 feet long, which is a lot more manageable, easier to cast, easier to sort of deal with if you are a young or beginner angler. 12-foot rods are great, and you really do need them if you're going to be fishing a massive lake and casting 100 yards plus. But you don't necessarily need a big, beefy, long rod if you're fishing smaller ponds and just getting into your carp fishing. So this is a 10-foot carp rod. On it, I have a carp reel. I've spooled up this reel with 12-pound line, a great all-round carp fishing line. It's monofilament line. I would recommend that to most beginners. You could go heavier, stronger, and use 15 or 20-pound line. That would probably be more necessary if you're fishing somewhere with really big fish, or you're fishing somewhere with snags and weed that the fish might try and get stuck in and maybe break your line. However, for most of your beginner carp fishing, I'd recommend spooling up with 12-pound monofilament. So to set up the rod, I'm just going to open the bail arm, take the line out of the clip, and begin threading the line through the eyes. As you do this, you want to be careful not to miss out one of the eyes and not to accidentally go around and then through the eye. You want to just make sure you don't go around the rod, you just go straight through the eyes. If you were to miss out one of the rod eyes or to accidentally wrap the line around it, it would just hinder your ability to cast. So now that the line is threaded through, you can close the bail arm, and as you can see, that locks it in place, and that means that you can, reel in and stuff. Now, rigs, what goes on the end of that line? Well, in recent years, I've quite liked using, if I can find it, one of these lead clip action packs. To be honest, buying all the bits separately is obviously fine, but when you're first getting into your carp fishing, it's quite handy to just get one pack and it's got all of the components you need to sort of set up your lead system. In here is a length of tubing, rig tubing. That helps reduce tangles. You thread that onto your line. It's also got tail rubbers, lead clips, and swivels. So with this one pack, you can set up quite a few rods. I'm not actually sure how many different swivels and things there are in there, but there's plenty. You can set up plenty of rods with it. So let's put the tubing onto the line. So I'll pull off a length of rig tubing, probably just over a foot of it. You want to use a longer length of tubing than your rig, because that will definitely help with reducing tangles. And also some fisheries have rules saying you've got to use tubing. As you get into your carp fishing and you're in it longer, you'll learn about different types of leaders, snag leaders, all sorts of things. But when you're getting into it, you can't go wrong with a simple bit of tubing. To help with threading the line through your tubing, I like to take some scissors and just cut the end of the line so it's pointed. If it's blunt and the end isn't so pointy, it won't go through the tubing so easily. Now I can just begin to push it through. Right, now it's coming out the other end. And the next component to set up the carp rig is a tail rubber. Thread that onto the line, followed by the lead clip. The reason why I've chosen to set up a lead clip today is because pretty much all fisheries in the UK permit the use of lead clips. There's no rules against them, and also they enable you to fish a safe rig, but also be able to change the size of your lead throughout your session. If you needed to cast further, you could clip on a bigger one, for example. Finishing this off, you just take one of the swivels that is provided and tie that on with any good reliable knot. This could be a uni knot, a grinner knot, but I like to use a blood knot because it's very easy. You just go round itself about 7 times or so and then back through the hole that you created, remembering to wet the knot before you pull it down tight. I'll trim that little tag end so it's nice and neat, and then pull on the line and thread the lead clip down until the swivel clicks into place. Now I'll take a lead. I've got a 1.5 ounce lead, I think this is, which is perfect for short to medium casts. Loop that onto the lead clip, moisten the lead clip slightly before then pushing the tail rubber over the edge. If you push the tail rubber on really far, then you won't lose your lead unless you were to have a fish go through loads of weeds and snags. If you push it on very lightly, the lead can come off more easily. I don't like losing my leads. However, you want to set up the system so that if you do get really badly snagged or you lose a fish, the fish isn't going to be pulling that lead around. Pull down on the tubing a little bit so that the tubing sort of sets inside the tail rubber. I'm going to just pull on that now. And what you have there is a finished lead setup. That tubing is heavy, sits on the bottom, stays away from the fish's fins, so you're not going to spook them too much, and yeah, also reduces the likelihood of tangles. Now I'll put the rod down there and grab a rig. Now I've got videos on the channel showing how to tie your own rigs. However, when you're first getting into carp fishing, you just want to go in the shop, grab a few bits and get on the bank. I would advise just getting a ready tied rig. There's no shame in buying a rig that's been pre-tied for you. It's reliable, it's already ready to go basically, and I use them all the time because it's easy. I'll take one of the rigs out of the pack here. Inside you've got 2 separate rigs. What I've gone for is a size 6 hook and a barbless hook as well. You can get different rig options available, like you can buy rigs that are designed for pop-ups, bottom baits, all sorts, but a simple basic hair rig, you can't fault it, you can't go wrong. To get your bait onto the hair rig, you're going to need a baiting needle, so I'll take that. I'll also grab my hook bait of choice. On this I'm going to put a boilie and a bit of fake sweet corn. The bait choice is of course entirely up to you. Push the bait onto the baiting needle, being careful not to stab your finger. I have done that before. Once it's on the needle, you can then take the loop of the hair rig, loop that over the needle and then slide your bait down onto it. Provided inside these ready tied rigs are some bait stops, which is handy. You take a bait stop, slip that into the loop on the hair rig and pull your bait down, and that just locks your bait in place, meaning it can't fall off during the cast or anything. And there we go, your bait is mounted on your hair rig, and now all you need to do is take your lead clip and loop the loop of your rig over the crook on the swivel, and then once that's on, you can then slide the anti-tangle tube down. That anti-tangle sleeve combined with the tubing above the lead really does help with reducing tangles when you're casting out, as it just seems to deflect the rig as it's flying through the air. That's almost ready to go, and you could cast that out over your baited spot right away and almost certainly catch fish. However, I like to take some pellets or some crushed up boilies and make up a PVA bag. Just scoop up a few pellets, drop them into the PVA bag and tie a couple of overhand knots in the PVA. Once you've got 2 knots, you can then take your scissors and cut in between the 2. That gives you 1 PVA bag to put on your rig and a knot in the end ready for your next bag. PVA is really neat because you can hook it onto your rig, cast it out. The PVA just dissolves into water and you're left with a little patch of pellets directly around your hook bait. It's a really good way to, draw fish in and get them feeding around your hook bait nice and accurately. You want to hook it on to the bag, slip it through some of the mesh, twist it, and then hook it on again. If you were to simply hook it on just once, I tend to find that it can fall off during the cast. It just doesn't stay in place until it gets to the bottom. But that is a finished carp rig that will catch you carp from almost anywhere. So let's get it cast out. Now, to make this cast, I'm going to trap the line underneath my finger, open the bail arm up, line up with where I want it to go, and bring the lead and rig behind me. If I needed to cast far, I'd be pulling hard with this arm and pushing hard with this arm to sort of switch the 2, and that would make it go far. However, I'm only on a small pond, and if I cast far, it would land on the far side. So just going to do a gentle flick, touch the line on the spool just before it hits the surface. That really helps with avoiding tangles as the bait sort of goes out and sinks to the bottom. But also by touching my finger on my spool, I can actually feel the lead falling down to the bottom. Close the bail arm and lay my rod tip just underneath the surface, and I'll pull on the line slightly. And what this is doing is sinking the line. The last thing you want once you've cast your carp rig into the lake is your line floating on the surface and wriggling all over the place, getting blown by the wind. So you sink your line till it's gone under. And now that line will be sitting down on the bottom where you want it to be. So here I've got 2 bank sticks that I put in the ground earlier. At the back, I've just got a normal rod rest, and at the front, I've got my bite alarm. I like to put the rod down on this with the rod eye behind the bite alarm, because when a fish pulls, it just means that the rod can't get yanked into the lake because it's safe there. Now you'll notice I've got a bite alarm, but really you don't necessarily need one for your first few trips carp fishing. It will just become more important when you want to be night fishing, as you'll need the alarm to wake you from your sleep. I'll slacken off the drag slightly just by turning it a couple of times. On a bait runner reel, you just flick the switch onto bait runner, because that will enable a fish, should it take your bait, to pull line and avoid pulling your rod into the water. I'll then take the bobbin and clip that onto the line. The bobbin is great because it means that if a fish takes your bait and comes towards you, the bobbin will fall, whereas if a fish takes the bait and swims away from you, the bobbin will pull up. Really helps with bite indication and knowing what's going on with your rig out there. Finally, I'll flick the bite alarm on, check it's working, and now I can sit back, have a bite to eat, watch the world go by, and hopefully wait for a screaming run. There we go, we've got one. Hopefully this video helped you learn how to set up a carp rod. Don't forget to check out the rest of the tutorials channel for more helpful fishing videos. See you soon!